Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to film a book tag. This is the supermarket shopping book tag. The originator of this tag is Byways in Bookland, and I was tagged by Shawn the Book Maniac. And as you know, I'm way behind on my tags, and I'm trying to catch up and film some of these tags. This is a really fun one. I think it was 2 or 3 months ago that Shawn tagged me in this. And I have written down the prompts and my answers in my bullet journal, so I'll be looking down in my lap sometimes, so I apologize for that. And I just want to also say that I have paraphrased the prompts, so for the very nicely worded actual prompts, please look down in the description box below. So let's just get to it. The first prompt is list. Before going book shopping, including virtually, do you have a list? Of course. I am a list lover. I keep lists of everything. I keep lists in my bullet journal. I keep lists on Goodreads. I keep lists everywhere of books that I hear about, that I'm interested in. I call it my wish list. And those are books that I'm interested in purchasing. And if I'm book shopping, whether it be virtually or in person, I'm referring to those lists all the time. Prompt 2, fruit and veg. A book that improved my physical or mental health. And for this one, I picked Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb. This is a book that I read for the BookTube Prize a few months ago, and it really improved my understanding of talk therapy, how that works, how what the importance of it is, and how it can impact people, including not only the client, but also the therapist. And I think it really broadened my mind as to the benefits. I always knew that obviously that therapy is beneficial to people, but it really broadened my understanding of how and why that is beneficial to folks. So that one definitely improved my mental health, I think. Prompt 3, tinned goods. The contents can sometimes be bland. What is your tinned can genre? So for me, I think I don't know. I really read widely across most genres, but the thing that I tend to shy away from and find, somewhat bland at this point in my life are sort of the New York Times bestseller commercial fiction offerings, such as, your James Pattersons, your Danielle Steele's, your I can't even think of some of the people that are just constantly on the New York Times bestseller list. That type of commercial fiction is something that I usually find quite bland at this point in my life. That's not to say that those are bad books, and if you like those, awesome. It's just something that I find bland most of the time. Prompt 4, meat/fish. A book that you feel was written just for you. And for this one, I am going to use a nonfiction book, of course, and it's The Seaweed Chronicles by Susan Hand Shetterly. Now, this book is all about seaweed, which you may find to be bland, but I really love this book. It's all about seaweed. It's all about seaweed on the coast of Maine, particularly, which is right up my alley. It dealt with people that I actually know in real life that are working on not only the science of seaweeds, but also the growing of seaweed for food purposes or other purposes. So seaweed aquaculture. And it just was a wonderful combination of all the things I love. The state of Maine, marine life, how the conservation and use of a marine resource intersects, all of the things that I am passionate about. So that was a book that I felt was written just for me. Prompt 5 is baked goods, an author I can easily digest at any time of day, and I am picking J.D. Robb for this. You guys know how much I love her Eve Dallas series. This is just one of the many offerings in that series, which numbers around 50 at this point, I think. And you know that I love this futuristic police procedural type book with a wide cast of characters, and I just enjoy them very much, and I can read them anytime. Then 6 is chilled section, a cool new author or book you recently discovered. And for this one, you guys have heard me go on and on about this recently. I'm going to keep shouting it out because I think that right now this is the best nonfiction book I've read all year. This is How to Hide an Empire, A History of the Greater United States by Daniel Immerwahr. This is all about how the U.S. has been a colonial power since its inception. It starts out talking about our subjugation and how we took over lands of the Native Americans who were living on the North American continent when white Europeans arrived here, like in the 1600s. And it goes all the way through the U.S.'s history, detailing information about Puerto Rico, the Philippines, Hawaii, Alaska, the little specks of land in the ocean that we planted a U.S. flag on for the purposes of collecting guano at one point. I mean, I could go on and on. You can see how much I tabbed. This book taught me a great deal, and I think this is a tremendous book and a tremendously important author, and I can't wait to read more of his work. Then question 7 is Frozen section, a book that gave you the shivers. Another book that I recently completed was The Institute by Stephen King. You know I'm a big Stephen King fan. This book was not, I wouldn't call this a horror book in his, in King's traditional manner. This is more of a psychological suspense. There are some elements of horror in it, but it's not particularly gory. All about children who are being kept in a institute for nefarious purposes, and how those children band together to try to fight back against the people who have kept them in this institute. It is fantastic. I listened to it on audiobook, and it was really good on audio. If you want a fast, compelling, thrilling read that will give you the shivers, I would highly recommend The Institute. 8 is Beers, Wines, and Spirits, one of the first books you read that made you feel like an adult. So when I was like in 7th or 8th grade, we had an assignment to read an autobiography and give a book report on it. At that point, I don't know that I'd ever read an autobiography before, but I went into the school's library and I picked out an autobiography, and that autobiography was Iacocca, the autobiography of Lee Iacocca, who was at the time the very successful chairperson of Chrysler Corporation, which is an American car company. And you may think that a book about the CEO of an American car company would not be very interesting, but I found it really fascinating how he worked his way up through the Ford Motor Company, and then got basically run out of town from Ford Motor, and then took over the failing Chrysler Corporation and brought that one back to profitability. He is a very compelling character. I don't know that myself today with my political my political leanings would find him quite so admirable, but my 7th grade self thought he was a pretty interesting character, and reading that book definitely made me feel adult, because it was a topic that I think only adults would want to read about. I don't think too many 12-year-olds would find an autobiography of Lee Iacocca very interesting. Prompt 9 is Sweets and Candy, a genre or an author to indulge in when you need a treat. And for me, that is absolutely romance. If I'm feeling down, if I'm sick, if I'm just feeling stressed out, I definitely reach for romance, which is not to say that romance doesn't talk about important topics or isn't written in a very isn't written well or anything like that. It's just that I find reading a romance to be comforting and to give me happiness and joy, which relieves my stress. And so I will always reach for a romance novel if I'm feeling down. Then 10 is magazine stand, magazines that I read. You guys know that is The Atlantic, and this is the May issue of The Atlantic. I love getting a subscription to The Atlantic. This magazine is all about current events, politics, but it also does deep dives into particular topics. And I find the writing tends to be really of high quality, and the topics that are discussed are very important and very pertinent to what is going on in the world. And also, I always learn a lot, and I just can't I just love the Atlantic so much, and I very much appreciate that I am able to get this monthly subscription to this magazine. I know that's a privilege, and it's one that I really appreciate. And then 11, check out Tag Some Shoppers. So I know this is an older tag, and I tried to go through my subscription and see who has already filmed this tag or who's already been tagged. So I'm gonna tag 2 booktubers, and if you've already been tagged, well then I'm just tagging you again because I love you so much. And the 2 booktubers I'd like to tag for this are Kay at Kay Becker's Books and Brian at Bookish. I would love to hear either of you do this tag and hear your answers to these questions, because these are really fun. And it gives you an opportunity to talk about a lot of books that you might not otherwise talk about. So thank you again to Shawn for tagging me, and thank you to Byways and Bookland for coming up with this tag, because I think it's really fun. I hope you are all doing well and finding some great books to read, and I will talk to you later.